In this episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief, I sit down with the famous Gabe Barrett of the Board Game Design Lab podcast and community to talk all about his relaunch of the Final Flicktier. It's a 4X dexterity game. I don't know if you have one of those in collection, but either way, you should definitely hang on until after our Kickstarter Corner to find out all about the Final Flicktier and what has changed since his last go-round on Kickstarter. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is proudly being powered by Rotunda-Last Man Standing Family Party Game, in which you battle friends and family in 16 minigames to decide a champion. There's 60 game chips, and all the game chips have really cool, fun characters or characters on them. Pretty cool, from an owl to a beaver. Well, I don't know if it's really a beaver, but they look like really cool characters. You should definitely check out this game, as some of the fun mini games actually involve spinning the poker chips, if you call them that, on the table and see who's standing last. But will you be the last man standing in Rotunda-Last Man Standing Family Party Game? The only way to find out is to back this game and help it become a reality on the Kickstarters you have through this Thursday, the 6th of December. So check out Rotunda-Last Man Standing Family Party Game. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is also proudly being powered by Oddbods G0-KARDS. Oddbods G0-KARDS is a smart and quirky card-powered racing party game. That's right, it's a party game, and with this cool, great game, for only $29.85, you get 68 great pieces, and those racers on the cards, the G0-KARDS to be exact, are like little miniature meeples. So I would definitely check out this great game. They have different options for you and for your wallet. But either way, this sounds and looks like a fun game that you can play with your kids. Your kids can play with their friends, and you can also play at your game group. It sounds like it's fun for all ages. So definitely go and see what Oddbods G0-KARDS is all about. You've got through Wednesday, the 12th of December, to get in on the fun of Oddbods G0-KARDS.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Welcome back to Getting Geeky with Game Relief. Glad you could make it. How about you go ahead and take your coat off and stay a while, as we've got 6 great games coming to you for Kickstarter Corner, and you'll want to stick around for my interview with Gabe Barrett of the Board Game Design Lab, and who has a new game on Kickstarter. So hang on until after these great games to hear all about Gabe's game.
What is this place? What is it doing here in the Leaf's computer? Oh, it's Kickstarter Corner with the Leafs.
By the time you're hearing this, Quickstarter Scarabs and Scorpions 2nd edition in 10 could be 150% funded. That's right. If it's not, you could be the one that puts it over the edge to get that 150 percentile. But anyways, you should definitely check out Quickstarter Scarabs and Scorpions, the 2nd edition in a tin, in which you push your luck and take that dice games. They're packaged in a sturdy travel tin. The original game plus new pyramid and a solo challenge. It's like all of the desert dice games you've ever wanted in a small tin. And in the latest update, he actually gave some pictures and stuff, and you can see the progress on this great campaign. Reminder that the first 50, I believe, backers are guaranteed to get their gifts, or their Quickstarters in this case, before Christmas. So you better jump on and check out Scarabs and Scorpion Daring Desert Dice Games for 1 to 5 players that take about 10 to 30 minutes, and you only have a short time. At the time of this recording, about 69 hours to go, so it really depends on when you're listening. But this project goes through Tuesday, the 4th of December at 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So don't waste any time and go check out Tony Ripley's Quickstarter Scarabs and Scorpion, 2nd edition in a tin, currently on the Kickstarters. Another one ending really soon is Keenan Dunham's Necrotopia Handbook to the Apocalypse, Book 1. It's an apocalyptic RPG game that will span many worlds and multiple apocalypses, 30-page color rule set book with original artwork. And they are over 150% funded, and there's 3 days to go at the time of recording. This one ends on Wednesday, the 5th of December. Did you miss our interview with Keenan? Not to fret, you can go back and listen to the update, or listen to the interview on the update dated November 27th. Great interview with Keenan Dunham, the creator of Necrotopia, on Gamerleaf. That's what the update's called. And you can go and listen and see everything that's great about Necrotopia and my little sit-down chat with Keenan. But either way, if you like an apocalyptic RPG, check out Necrotopia Handbook to the Apocalypse, Book 1, on the Kickstarters through this Wednesday. Another great game that will give you a little bit longer to back is Glyph Chess, the Magic board game. It's a tactical style board game which can only be played by the most powerful of wizards. Think about chess with superpowers or magic abilities. Chess with spells, that's the best way to think of it. They've got a bunch of stretch goals already unlocked, and you can get in on something great by checking out this great chess game with awesome miniatures in Glyph Chess, the magic board game that will be on Kickstarter through Monday, the 10th of December. So 8 days to go. Another one that's on Kickstarter still is Robogram, the programming card game reloaded. Robogram is a game designed to introduce basic computer coding while taking opponents in epic cyber battles. They're going for a really low funding goal, and there's still about 2 weeks to go as this one goes through Saturday the 15th of December. Did you catch our interview? Not to worry. We're an update on this one as well in November 29th's update titled Kickstarter Corner Interview with the Author. So, you want to find out more about Robogram, the programming card game reloaded, from myself and the creator? Definitely go in and listen to that interview in the update of his Kickstarter. And then go back the game if you like what you see or hear. Were you glued to the Kickstarter over the weekend? Oh, you weren't? Well, you'll definitely want to go ahead and jump on, as a new game has launched since you were last there. Monster Mania. That's right, Monster Mania is a strategic battle card game for 1 to 6 players. Collect resources, deal powerful attacks, and defeat all other monsters in Joshua McMurray's latest and greatest Monster Mania, which, get this, it will be fulfilled by Miniature Market as well as they'll be carrying it. But first off, we've got to get it to its funding goal so they can have it on their shelves. But by backing, you'll get it before the masses, and you can become the monster champion. If you don't like fighting one another, they do have a co-op version as well as a solo version. Want to hear my interview with the creator? Well, you can do that by scrolling down through the page, and you'll find our little logo, Getting Geeky with Gamerleaf, a family-friendly podcast or board game podcast, and you'll be able to hear myself and Josh chat all about Monster Mania. Didn't get enough of Josh in that? Then you'll want to check out the next one below it. And then Josh is also interviewed by Richard from We're Not Wizards. You can check that out as well. Just scroll on down to the bottom of the Kickstarter page to hear those interviews. And then back the game, just like with any of the other games, back them if you like them. And show GamerLeaf as well as these creators great support, or your support. Do you want to hear Josh back on the show next week? Go ahead and give me a thumbs up, let me know, so we can get him back on. Last but not least, before we let you get on with your interview that you came here for, is a game by Sentient Games. It's called Natural Selection. It's a fun educational board game that is suited for all players of all ages. It's a game of dominance, survival, and sentience, in which you start as a single-celled organism and you make decisions on becoming carnivore, omnivore, or herbivore to determine the way you will try to win the game. There is only one way to avoid extinction, and that is to be the fittest for survival. So, survival of the fittest, like they say, and now you have the opportunity to do it in a board game. So definitely check out Natural Selection. That'll be on Kickstarter through Monday the 7th of January. In case I didn't say, you have through the end of December, the 31st, to back Monster Mania and make this game a reality. But don't dilly-dally and don't wait, as there's some awesome stretch goals there on his page. So head on over to Kickstarter and then come back and listen to the rest of the show. We now join GamerLeaf, myself, and Gabe in their interview about the Final Flicktier that's already in progress. We'll catch you on the flip side of that interview.
Now, let's get geeky with GamerLeaf.
Welcome to Getting Geeky with GamerLeaf. Tonight we're lucky enough to be joined by the creator mastermind behind a new game on Kickstarter, the Final Flicktier. And is that right, Gabe? Is that how you fit into line with the Final Flicktier that's on Kickstarter, about to be there?
Yeah, the Final Flicktier launches December 4th. So I assume if people are hearing this, then it's probably live on Kickstarter now.
Yeah, for sure. Or about to be like tomorrow maybe. But yeah, we were either tomorrow or the day before, or it's already launched, like you said. So that's awesome. Now, thank you so much for joining us on Getting Geeky with GamerLeaf. We really appreciate it, Gabe.
Yeah, man, glad to be here.
Now, before we jump into the Final Flicktier and everything that's great about it, let's rewind a little bit about it. Let's rewind a little bit if we could. How did you get into playing tabletop board games and whatnot, Gabe?
Yeah, so I mean, like most kids, grew up playing a lot of the mass market games, and then in college, I just kind of discovered hobby games, and nothing crazy. It was Catan like everybody else, but also got into playing a lot of D&D in college, and spending a lot of Friday and Saturday nights just hanging out with some friends and just eating some snacks and trying to run through dungeons and kill dragons and whatnot. And then I don't know, I guess I had graduated, and then a couple years into like working and being a real adult and all that good stuff, I just kind of rediscovered games and learned that the hobby, the market, had vastly changed since I remembered. And so it was just kind of a fun process of discovering all these new awesome games that were coming out and playing them and eventually start designing them.
Awesome. So what changed when you rediscovered it?
Oh man, well, you went from, just kind of Hungry Hippos to, Ticket to Ride. So that kind of thing. And again, Catan was in college. I played, maybe one or two. I played Munchkin in college, which Munchkin's a pretty good game for people who aren't into the hobby, but it's kind of lacking in a lot of ways. And so I just discovered that games had kind of grown and flourished and becoming this thing that was more than just an activity, that there are a lot of really cool choices and really cool decisions and narratives and tons of different themes and different kinds of games. And yeah, it was a lot of fun just to kind of dive in and see what was out there.
Yeah, you talk about a lot of games. It's almost to the point, I'd say, where anybody who wants to sit down to play a game, if they're in the hobby, they might experience analysis paralysis and picking what they want to play or what they want to back on Kickstarter, it would seem.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think 600 games came out at Gen Con this year. Thousands of games come out every year now, and so yeah, it can be very difficult, especially for people just getting into the hobby. Although there's lots of like key like core games that everyone should probably play, if not buy, and so I think that's helpful to kind of have this like pantheon of like the games to get into the hobby, to start out with. I think that's helpful. But yeah, once you really get into it, man, there's so many options. It's difficult to make a good choice.
So I imagine it's pretty difficult to pick a favorite, but what are you playing these days, Gabe, or do you have a current favorite?
Yeah, so board game wise, I'm still loving Time Stories and just kind of the way that game is played. But I've really been getting back into RPGs. I've been playing a lot of index card RPG. People might not have heard of that one, but it's just awesome. It's a really rules light system. It allows for a lot of just kind of free narrative and a lot of fun. The rule, you don't get bogged down with the rules. And so you can just kind of throw it together, have some fun, and not have to play a 4-hour or 6-hour session. It's not super crunchy. So ICRPG, I really recommend that one to anyone who's interested in RPGs, but doesn't have the time or the wherewithal to kind of go through a D&D type game.
And what did you call it again? What's the name of it?
ICRPG. It stands for Index Card Role-playing game. And so basically the premise is you can use index cards to represent almost anything, whether it's terrain or characters or weapons and different things. You can just kind of, there's lots of resources out on the internet to give you like different things that are already drawn on index size cards. You can make your own. And so, yeah, again, it's a rules light system and it's just, it's a ton of fun. So yeah, highly recommend people check that one out.
So ICRPGs, that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, man, I'm really loving it. I'm enjoying just kind of creating worlds and creating all these interesting characters and stories. And again, it's a role-playing game. And so the narrative is just kind of wide open. And I've got some students here at the school where I work that are into it, and they're having a lot of fun kind of learning. This is basically the first RPG they've ever played. And so it's really awesome to kind of have some fun, get in there, in a system that's not super rules heavy where you have to learn manuals and all these mountains of rules, and just get in there and play.
Awesome. So if you own the rights to ICRPG, what would be one thing you would do to enhance the game, being a designer and all, Gabe?
Oh man, just so many different worlds. So the game comes with 3 main settings, right? And one is your normal fantasy D&D style deal. Another one is like this really cool sci-fi called Warp Shell, where it's you're flying around and you're having adventures out in space. And there's a third one that's kind of like the Weird West, and it's kind of like the Wild West, but there's magic and there's like really interesting stuff going on. And so I would just create more worlds, just create more settings for people to get in and just have fun with.
Awesome. And how long has that been around?
Ooh, let's see. I think the second edition, which is like the premier, all the rules have been updated and everything fixed. I think that came out this past summer. So I think it was like May or June of 2018.
Oh, wow. So they're just getting started, or well, I guess on the second edition. That's awesome. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, and they've been working on it. The guy, it's Hankerin Furnail, I think is his name, the creator. And he's been working on it for years and finally just kind of put all the ideas together. And yes, it's awesome.
How did you find it, Gabe?
So I was working on my own RPG system. I was trying to just kind of playing around and just mess around with different systems and just looking online and Googling good ones to check out and learn from. And that's when I ran across, and I was like, wow, it was basically very similar to a lot of things I was already working on, but way better and way more streamlined and a lot more playtesting experience. And I was like, oh, let me just use this instead of trying to create my own. I'll just use this and maybe make some supplements or some different things to go along with it.
Oh, well, and it looks like that tied up some time for you to be able to create another game. What can you tell us about Final Flicktier that's currently on Kickstarter, about to be?
Yeah, so it's a ton of fun. It's a 4X dexterity game, which is not something you hear very often. Not very many of those probably on people's game shelves. And so basically you take on the role of an asymmetrical faction. Each faction has some different abilities, allows you to do different things, and you're playing around in the galaxy, basically. You have dice that are your ships, and you're flicking these dice around and attacking other players and trying to build stuff on planets and gain resources and do different things to accomplish objectives and missions and trying to get the most victory points. Game takes about an hour to play, goes 1 to 4 players. And yeah, I've had a lot of fun designing it and a ton of fun playing it too.
Awesome. And yeah, just looking at it, it looks pretty awesome. And recently with the dexterity, I've heard of like a dungeon crawl. We recently, I had somebody on the show from Catacombs, which is a different genre, but have you heard of that one?
Oh man, that was one of the first games I bought when I was really getting into the hobby. Yeah, and Aaron West, he's an awesome guy. He came on my show recently as well, and so I'm a huge fan of Catacombs. I just bought their streamlined version, the Catacombs Conquest, I think it's called, to play with these students here, just as a way to introduce them to dexterity games. So yeah.
Awesome. That's one that's been sitting on our shelf forever. It's just so hard to get these games down off the shelf. So on his, you're flicking the heroes around, but in yours, I guess you're flicking dice. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so it's dice dice. The original game, the concept was very similar to Catacombs. You had tokens, you had wooden discs that you flicked around the table. But the more I played, I was like, I want to do something different. And so I had, just kind of thought for a while, and eventually I came up with the idea of using dice. And that way each faction can have different dice. Some factions have D4, some D6s, D8s, and D12. Even one faction has a D20, this giant like Death Star ship rolling around the board. And using dice allows you to do some different things, right? And so you can have different sizes, so it makes flicking a little bit different for each faction. But then it goes into the combat. So the combat is based on whatever number is currently face up on the die. That's your current combat rating. So if you're trying to attack or if you're trying to defend, then the number that's face up on the die plays into that. And so using the die not only for interesting faction choices, but also for make combat a little bit more interesting as well. It was really interesting design breakthrough I had to do that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So if I'm understanding correctly, if I flick it from wherever it is and the number changes on the way, that'll be a number I'll use for combat against your ships?
Yeah, exactly. So if you've got a 6 face up and you're trying to attack my 4, but in your flick you roll it over to a 1 and I'm still at 4, I'm winning 4-1. And there's also some combat cards. There's some other ways to kind of mitigate things. But yeah, that's your main attack value.
Awesome. So if me and you sat down to play the Final Flicktier, what would that look like? What's our turn going to consist of, Gabe?
Yeah, so every turn you get 2 actions, and there's 7 possible actions. You can move, and you get a couple flicks. You don't just get one; there's a couple, and there's some faction abilities as well. You could attack, you can exploit, so if you can get resources from any planet that you have a presence on, either a ship or a structure. You can build. Every faction has different structures they can build that gives them different abilities and whatnot. You can upgrade, which gives you access to more special abilities or more victory points in the end game. You can return. So if you accidentally flick your ship, off the table, into the litter box or under the fridge, something like that, you can use a return action to bring it back to your home planet. I think, is that all? Did I hit 7? I don't know, 7 total possibilities, but you only get 2 on a turn. So it's really about being efficient with your actions, making sure you're using every action to the best you can, because you're not, you don't have just infinite.
So how does that affect somebody like myself? I hear I suffer from AP.
Well, each faction has a bit of a direction, you might say. Each faction is good at certain things and weaker at other things. And so depending on the faction you chose, you get a little bit of direction about what you want to do. So some factions are really good at combat. Okay, so you want to make sure you're attacking as often as you can. Some are really good at building. Some are really good at moving around and exploring and getting mission cards. And so, depending on what style of play you have, if you're not into, attacking other players, well, you don't have to play that faction. You can do something else, and you could not attack a single time the entire game and still have a really good chance of winning in the end. So the game's really balanced as far as the factions go, with different paths to victory. And so, yeah, I'd say whatever faction you have, make sure you're playing up their strengths and avoiding their weaknesses, and that's going to give you more guidance in the actions on your turn.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. Awesome. And so first when you described it, until you told me there's different sized dice, I was worried we were all going to be flicking D6s around, but that's pretty cool that everybody gets their own different dice for the factions.
Yeah, definitely. It gives each faction a little bit different feel and also a little bit different tactical. It's easier to flick a D6 maybe than it is a D4 or a D12, and it changes kind of how you play the game.
So how many dice am I going to get depending on what faction I get? How many dice do we start off with?
Everybody starts off with 3. So there's 15 total dice in the game. Each faction has 3. Originally I had more dice. Some factions have 5, things like that. But the more I play tested, the more I kind of worked through the design. 3 was the magic number.
Okay, so I can have up to 4 other friends. Well, I guess up to 3 other friends to play it with me.
Yeah, so I was working on a 5th player expansion, but I just hadn't got it right yet, and so that might be something I release as an expansion down the road. But you get 5 factions in the base game, and so, but yeah, it's from 1 to 4 players at the table.
Oh, okay, awesome. And if I just recently got done watching the Tantrum House did a preview on it a couple days ago. By the time you guys are hearing this, with that, are we each going to get a play mat, or where's the game take? Do I just start flicking on my table, or how's the play area look?
Yeah, so the base game comes with 2 neoprene mats rolled up right there in the box. And so that was something I really wanted to make sure was in the base game. I know a lot of games, you can buy the play mat as an add-on, as an extra kind of thing. But this game, being a dexterity game, you just really needed that from the get-go. And so the original game, it was just on the table, and I used cards. You had to flick dice on cards. It just didn't work very well. The mat was necessary, and so I found a really good manufacturer that does a good quality job with neoprene mats at a good price. And so, yeah, you get 2 of those right there in the box.
Oh, that's awesome. We love us some neoprene mats, so that's pretty cool. And it sounds like there was quite a bit that you scrapped during play testing. Anything else you might have scrapped that wouldn't just work?
Oh yeah, the combat system originally was a lot more complicated. There were, different. You could do missiles, you could do lasers. Like there were a lot of different types of attacks that you could do. But the more I playtested, the more I realized that it was all just kind of a waste. It just added too many extra decisions that didn't need to be there. And so I just simplified it all the way down to where you flick your die, and if you hit another die, that's combat. And so you have to say, I'm attacking you. You can't just accidentally do it. But I just made it a lot more streamlined, a lot simpler, and made the game speed up a lot and made choices on your turn a lot easier.
Awesome. And when it comes to the Final Flicktier, what would you say you're most proud of, Gabe?
Yeah, so honestly, it's the the fact that the game exists. So the original idea was I just wrote down a question. I was interviewing a guy for my own podcast, and he had a really cool dinosaur basketball dexterity game, which is just kind of a crazy idea, but it turns out to be a really good game. And I remember during that interview, I just wrote down in my notes 4x dexterity with a question mark. It's like, is this possible? Has this been done before? Is this a game that could exist? And so over the next, several months, I just kind of played around and tested things and tried different things. And eventually I figured out, yes, this is possible. And so it became a game. And then through several months of play testing and figuring the game out and streamlining it, it's like, wow, this really is possible. So the fact that I was able to go from a question of, can this game exist to yes, and it could be a lot of fun. I'm really proud of that.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, for sure. It sounds like you answered your own question. Now, not to detract from the Final Flicktier, but you had my mind on a dinosaur dexterity basketball game. What was that?
Yeah, it's called Dino Dunk. And it's actually just got a Dice Tower review, I think, a couple weeks ago, and Tom really liked it. He had a lot of fun with it. And yeah, you've got dinosaurs, and it's tokens, and so you've got different size tokens based on different size dinosaurs, I believe, and each one has a different special ability, and you've got a big neoprene mat, and you're flicking a little token that you're the basketball around, and you're trying to shoot it into a volcano that's printed on the mat and trying to land it inside there, and that's how you score points. It's a super clever game.
Oh, wow. Who designed that one?
Cody Stevens is the designer of that, and I think that was his first game that he's maybe designed, but definitely published. He just self-published it himself. I think it came out at Origins this past summer, 2018, and so, yeah, check it out.
Oh, so it didn't even go to Kickstarter? He just brought it out at Origins?
Yeah, I think so. He didn't do a Kickstarter. He just, I guess he had a little extra money sitting around somewhere or took out a loan or something, and did it himself.
Wow, that's pretty cool. But yeah, jumping back to the topic on hand, the Final Flicktier. This isn't the first run on Kickstarter. What can you tell us about the science in running another one? Well, first off, yeah. So what's going to be different between the first Kickstarter and this one that's going on right now?
Yeah, so this is a relaunch. Honestly, I feel like the first time around, it had a decent chance of funding there at the end. I was about 45% when I cut it, and I still had 2.5 weeks left or something like that. So it might have made it across the finish line, but it didn't get off to the start that I really wanted it to. And the more I talked to veterans of Kickstarter, some friends, some publishers, other Kickstarter creators, the more I realized that there were a lot of things that I needed to change. I needed to do differently, that I need to fix. And so I went ahead and just canceled it. And, basically what I told the backers is like, this is the first half. We're at halftime right now, and we're going to come back for the second half in about a month. And so that's this is the second half. We're going to play it through to in the fourth quarter now, and hopefully it does a lot better. But as far as changes, I lowered the price of the game and added more to it. So I feel like that was one thing that a lot of people were looking at the game and thinking, maybe, I don't know. It just wasn't as good of a value proposition as it could have been. And so lowering the price, adding more to the game, I had some really cool stretch goals that I wanted to do to add to the game. But then I thought, let's just let's find a way to put this stuff in. And so I actually found another manufacturer that I wasn't aware of before. A friend of mine introduced me to that was able to give me a better price per unit. And so I was able to lower the funding goal down some just with this other manufacturer. And they do an incredible job. I've looked at the games that they've printed in the past, and it's super high quality. They do really good stuff, but it was cheaper than the original manufacturer I was going to go with. And so I was able to lower the price and throw extra stuff in the box and still, have a pretty good campaign as far as the numbers and different things like that, as far as, not losing a ton of money or anything like that. And so that was a big thing. Also reaching out to more reviewers and previewers, just trying to reach more audiences and get more eyeballs on the campaign through YouTube and reviews and things like that. So those are a couple of the big ones. And then just giving people, I listened to the community and saying, hey, what do you think needs to be different? And just kind of hearing their thoughts and ideas and bringing the backers into the process of helping me make a better product.
Yeah, that's always good to hear. Bring other people's communities into just more eyes on it that way. So that's pretty cool. So what is it going to cost us or set somebody back to get Final Flicktier through the Kickstarter, Gabe?
Yeah, so for the base game, it's $39, and if you're in the US, that's free shipping as well. So $39 will get the game for you. And then if you want the expansion, so there's all these extra expansion factions as well. You can get the game and the expansion for $49.
Okay, awesome. And let's see, what all is going to come in the game? You said you added some stuff to the game from last go round.
Yeah, so originally I was going to have to put the extra faction, so the 5th base faction and the solo mode was going to have to be a stretch goal, just based on kind of where the numbers were at and things like that. But working with this new manufacturer, I was able to add that right in the box. And so, solo mode and the extra faction are right there. You don't have to get stretch goals or anything like that. You get them from the get-go.
Awesome. And the funding goal was $15,000. Where is it at now?
Yeah, this time it's going to be 10. And so it's just, I was also able to do a lower print run, which is great. The original manufacturer I was going to use, I had to do 1,500 copies. And for the new one, I can do 1,000 as a minimum. And so that allowed me to lower the funding goal down considerably. And so I feel really good this time around, not only about funding, but also, kind of going above and beyond where the campaign was headed last time.
Awesome. And you talked about reviewers doing it. Who reviewed it last time and who have you added since? I see you had the Michael Wright from the Unfiltered Gamer last time.
Yes, there it is. There it is. Couldn't remember his name. Yeah, Unfiltered Gamer was one. And then I had a written review from a guy named Jay Dotson, who's an awesome community member for the podcast that I run. He's helped me out with a lot of playtesting, and he wanted to do a review for the game. And so I said, yeah, absolutely. And so those are the two at the beginning. I talked to several more the first time around, but October and November were crazy on Kickstarter. And so, everybody was super busy. And even though I talked to them like 6-8 weeks out, some of them say, hey, I've got this game coming up in a month or two, can you review it? They're like, no, we're super busy. And then I talked to a couple that I was supposed to get in with, but for various reasons, it didn't work out, which is a little bit frustrating. And so first time around, I only had those 2 reviewers. But this next time, I think I have six reviewers / previewers, I believe. 5 or 6. Anyway, I'll find out in the next couple of days when all the videos come in. But so this next go round, it's considerably more.
Okay, awesome. I know the Tantrum House has released one already. Who else are we gonna surprise the backers as they come in?
Yeah, so Board Game Brawl is doing one, and Edo Barrett from League of Game Makers, he's also doing one. I think that's it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. That'll be 5 total this time around.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And what did they have to say about it? If somebody hasn't watched their stuff, what did they think of the Final Flicktier?
Yeah, it's good stuff. Tantrum House had a really favorable video about it. Edo as well. He liked the game, as far as I know. He told me that in person and through a message. I haven't seen the video yet. We're recording this a handful of days before the Kickstarter launch, so some of these videos haven't actually come in yet. But as far as I can tell, everybody's enjoyed the game so far.
Well, that's pretty cool. Now, you talked to you a couple times before. You've mentioned your podcast. So word on the street is you also run a podcast actually focused on game design. What can you tell us about your podcast, Gabe?
Yeah, so it's called the Board Game Design Lab, and every episode I focus on a specific topic in game design, and I interview someone from the industry. Sometimes it's designers, most times designers, sometimes publishers, sometimes just people that are in the industry that have kind of the behind the scenes access and whatnot. And we talk about all sorts of stuff. It's always game design related, whether we're talking about a specific theme or a certain type of mechanism or shipping or printing, marketing, that kind of thing. But it's all game design focused.
And it's been going for a little while now, hasn't it?
Yeah. So hit over 100 episodes I guess 2 months ago. So we're like episode 106 now or something like that. It's been running about 2 years at this point.
Well, that's pretty cool. And where was the inspiration behind that? You wanted to design games so you could pick their brains, or where'd the inspiration come from?
Yeah, that was part of it. I mean, I was designing games, and my games were not very good at the time. This was about 2.5, 3 years ago, I guess, when I first had the idea of wanting to do this. And then I also wanted to contribute to the hobby in some way. And I live in Honduras, and so it could be a little bit difficult. There's not very many game stores here. And so I wasn't able to review games or anything like that, or, do unboxing videos or, the way a lot of people contribute. I just wasn't able to do it, but I could do a podcast. I had a pretty good internet connection, and I I do pretty well as far as talking to people. And so I felt like, well, let's see if this works. And so I started reaching out to designers just to see if they'd be interested. And I had I have just a ton of people saying, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to be on your show. Like, oh, okay. And that's just kind of how it started. And it's been rolling ever since.
Well, yeah, I've listened to a number of them, and they're pretty cool. Pretty good stuff you have on there. Now, with all of the other games on Kickstarter, what makes your game pop or stand out as one my audience should go check out? And then back if they like what they see, Gabe.
Yeah, well, first of all, like already said before, this is going to fit a hole in your collection because I'm assuming you don't have a 4X dexterity game. I'm assuming that is not something that a lot of people have on their shelves. This is a game you can play with family, but it's also a game that you can play with super competitive friends. So it scales well to different age groups and demographics, and it even scales well for people that aren't really into dexterity games. So dexterity is part of it, but it's not the whole game. That's one thing about most dexterity games is like, well, that's the entire thing. Either you like dexterity, or you don't. But that's the whole entire thing. Well, this game has a lot of other things going on where if you're not really into dexterity, you'll still potentially enjoy the game if you like space, if you like 4X style games, and you can play it in about an hour. So it doesn't take very long to play. And the artwork is really great. I'm super pleased with the art and graphic design. The Drew Corkle and Ash Jackson have done an incredible job, just amazing job with making the game look really great on the table. And so, yeah, I'd say if you're listening to this and any of those things appeal to you, please check out the campaign. And if it's something that you think you'd enjoy, please back it.
Yeah, we'll make sure we leave links in the show notes so they can do that. Sometimes people don't necessarily want to type everything in, so we'll make sure we go ahead and do that. Now, kind of the same question with your podcast or whatnot. What about people that aren't necessarily game designers? Is your podcast just for game designers?
No, I wouldn't say so. It's for anybody who's interested in the other side. So even if you're not interested in designing your own game, but maybe you want to just kind of see behind the curtain, so to speak, with some of these designers and publishers, it's a great way to do that. Each episode is around 45 minutes or so. And so if you've got a good commute, to and from work, they're really good just for, in your car listening and things like that. But all the episodes are labeled, so it's really easy to know exactly what the episode is about, both with the person being interviewed, but also the topic that we go into. And so, yeah, I'd say if you're not into game design, at least look through the different episodes that I've done so far, and you might find some interesting things there. And it's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, it's on anywhere you find podcasts, I'm pretty sure, but also at boardgamedesignlab.com.
And I want to say you release every Monday, is that right?
Every Wednesday.
Awesome. Maybe you send an email out on Mondays. Something happens on a Monday, I thought.
Yeah. So Monday I send out, I call it Monday the Gathering, and I send out board game design resources that I have found the previous week. And so, I keep tabs on lots of blogs and podcasts and things all over the internet as far as resources for game designers. And so Monday is when I kind of send out this curated email with just links to all those resources.
Now, so we don't keep you all night, minus coming there to Honduras to stalk you, how would people go about keeping up with you or what you have going on in the future, Gabe?
Yeah, so boardgamedesignlab.com is the core, the website, but then also the Board Game Design Lab community over on Facebook. That's a really great place. There's probably 2,300 or so members at this point, and that's where everything goes down. That's kind of the first look as far as what's coming next and when podcasts launch. And it's also an incredible group of people that are just trying to help each other make better games. It's super encouraging. It's a lot of fun to be around and just get opinions and ideas and be able to bounce different things off of designers from all over the world.
Awesome. And speaking of what you have going on next, per se, they haven't jumped over to that or whatnot, and they're listening to this after the Kickstarter. What do you have going on in the future, Gabe?
Yeah, so this past year, I wrote a book, or put together a book called Board Game Design Advice from the Best in the World, where I interviewed, I think, 61 different game designers about various topics in game design. And so right now I'm working on the second edition. My goal was to have over 100 designers by the end. And so I'm working on that. That'll hopefully come out middle of next year. I'll probably do a Kickstarter February or March for that to kind of do the second edition of that book. And I've got tons of games that I'm working on as well. Working on these RPG supplements I was talking about earlier in the show, but also several board games that I'm really excited about that I'm hoping come to life before too long.
Awesome. And I believe you have a Patreon, or you run a Kickstarter for your podcast as well. What can you tell us about that, Gabe?
Oh, yeah. So the Patreon it's called BGDL Plus, so Board Game Design Lab Plus, and that just gives people access to extra podcasts that I do each month, where it's extra interview series, and also do one that's all about creativity and time management, and just kind of a higher level show just talking about different things to help creative people. And it gives people access to, I run different contests and things through the Board Game Design Lab community. And so it's for anybody that just wants to take the next step in their board game designing. It's just extra resources, extra stuff to be able to do that.
Well, there you go. So Gabe's given us quite a few ways to follow or keep up with him, but I would definitely right now I would go ahead and click on over that link that will take you to the Final Flicktier game that's currently on Kickstarter or about to be, and it'll be up. How long do they have to back this great game, Gabe?
Yeah, it's from December 4th to January 4th. So you got the whole month of December and then a couple days after the beginning of the year.
Okay, and so you don't overpromise and underdeliver. When do you anticipate they can start playing their own 4X dexterity game in their home?
Yeah, so right now, assuming no crazy delays or shipping issues, which there's always buffers and whatnot, but I'm hoping August of 2019.
Okay, awesome. And so we'll make sure we'll make sure we leave all the links in the show notes. But we really appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday night to join us on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. We really appreciate it, Gabe.
Yeah, man, glad to be here. Really appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Game over. I don't know how you thought that went. The game sounds awesome, but unfortunately I felt like I was fanboying or choking at the first of it, but I warmed up to the idea of having one of the great podcasters I know on, Gabe Barrett. I've listened to his podcast. It's been a little while, but I really enjoy his show, the Board Game Design Lab. You should go check it out. But Gabe said I did a good job, so that's pretty cool, huh? I thought so. If you liked anything about the idea of having a 4X dexterity game to add to your collection, definitely go ahead and check out the Kickstarter. I'll leave a link in the show notes. It won't go live until tomorrow or Tuesday, whenever you're listening to this. But click that link, and like usual, on the top left, you should get a link that says notify me upon launch, and it'll send you an email and let you know when this project launches. Let's go ahead and get this game funded a lot faster than the last go round. If you haven't, go watch the Tantrum House's preview of it. I did before I sat down with Gabe, and I thought it was a great interview. But anyways, it's our least favorite time, your least favorite time for us to get on with our lives, you to get on with yours. If you want or have any part of your life that is wanting to get your game mentioned on Getting Geeky with Game Relief, make sure you send me a message at GameRelief@GameReliefGo.com or on Facebook at Getting Geeky with Game Relief. Love to be able to showcase your game. Or you can also do a giveaway with the Giveaway Geek, as I'm your go-to guy there as well as I work with him. But anyways, you go ahead and have a good day, and we'll catch you on the flip side like usual. Game Relief out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.